Hi everyone, and welcome to today's episode of ZK Studies, where we are going to be taking a look at the biological consequences or effects of smoking on the body. So there are going to be 3 components of cigarettes that we're going to look at, as well as 6 different aspects of the body which we're going to see that are affected by smoking cigarettes. So let's get started. Now, first of all, we're going to focus on the component carbon monoxide. Okay, and what carbon monoxide is that it's a poisonous gas. It irreversibly binds to hemoglobin in red blood cells, and this reduces the oxygen carrying capacity of blood. And the reason why it lowers the oxygen carrying capacity is because this hemoglobin would otherwise bind to oxygen. But since it's instead binding to carbon monoxide, it means that less oxygen can be transported. So those are the effects of carbon monoxide. You also have tar that's contained in cigarettes, and tar is a mixture of chemicals. They are thick, sticky, dark fluids, and they're produced when tobacco burns. Some of the chemicals inside of tar are carcinogenic, and this means that it increases the risk of cancer. And in chemistry, you might remember that crude oil is also carcinogenic, so it promotes cancer formation or increases the risk of cancer. And the consequences of tar is that the droplets form in smoke, and then they condense in our airways and alveoli. So tar droplets form in smoke, then they condense. So they change from a gaseous to a liquid state in our airways and alveoli. And particularly for the alveoli, tar makes their walls less flexible and elastic, and this means they damage more easily. And what this means is that the efficiency of gaseous exchange in the alveoli is reduced. Tar also damages ciliated epithelial cells, and these are the cells that you might find in the trachea, bronchi, bronchioles that contain hair-like structures, and damaging these cells leads to a buildup of mucus in our lungs. And as a result of this mucus buildup, you might observe something called that is known as the smoker's cough, and this is when smokers try to reduce the amount of mucus that is in their lungs by coughing it out. So those were the effects of tar on the body, and the final component of cigarettes that we're going to focus on is nicotine. So nicotine is the addictive component of smoke. It is a type of drug that's known as a stimulant, and it releases adrenaline. And adrenaline in itself leads to a whole host of other biological consequences, which you can take a look at in our adrenaline video. So nicotine is addictive. It is a stimulant, and it releases adrenaline. And the main biological consequences of adrenaline is that it leads to an increased heart rate and blood pressure. Okay, so now that the components of cigarettes and cigarette smoke have been covered, let's take a look at different factors of the body. And a lot of these might overlap. So first of all, we have hemoglobin. And as you can remember, carbon monoxide in smoke irreversibly binds to the hemoglobin, and this reduces the oxygen carrying capacity of blood. So I'll just copy and paste this. Next, we have blood vessels. And blood vessels refer to our arteries, veins, and capillaries. So as a result of smoking, our arteries are made more thick and less flexible. Also, the oxidizing chemicals that are in cigarette smoke damage the lining of blood vessels. So arteries are made more thick and less flexible, and the lining is damaged. Let's move on to alveoli. So when we looked at tar, we saw that the tar in cigarettes makes the walls of alveoli less elastic, and as a result, they're more prone to damage. Also, what can happen is that the alveoli become larger in a condition known as emphysema, and this lowers their surface area to volume ratio. And this results in a lowered efficiency of gaseous exchange, less efficient gaseous exchange, and as a result, less oxygen is carried in our blood. And this is what makes mild exercise even difficult for people with emphysema because of the lowered levels of oxygen in their blood. And you can take a look at the exercise video to learn more about the effects of exercise on the body. So far we have hemoglobin, blood vessels, and alveoli. We can also take a look at blood clotting and how it's affected by smoking. Now, because components of cigarettes can damage the lining of blood vessels, such as oxidizing chemicals, the risk of blood clotting is increased. So the risk of blood clotting increases. Next, in terms of blood pressure, we saw that nicotine triggers the release of adrenaline, which is a hormone. And as a result of adrenaline being released, our blood pressure increases. Finally, let's take a look at bronchi. So remember, bronchi are the tubes which branch off the trachea and help carry air deeper into the lungs. Cigarette smoke irritates bronchi, and this could result in a condition known as bronchitis. Results in bronchitis. So the first part of this word, bronchi, quite obviously refers to the structure in our body known as bronchi, and the second portion, the suffix itis, refers to inflammation. And you might know this from things like hepatitis, which is the inflammation of the liver, or pancreatitis, which is the inflammation of the pancreas. So essentially, bronchitis refers to the inflammation of bronchi. And that's what this condition is all about. Okay, so we covered 3 components of cigarettes and cigarette smoke, and then looked at the negative impacts they have on parts of the body.